So, Loki episode 2, I am mesmerized once again. What I think this episode does really well is that even though, in my experience, I didn't understand everything that was happening, it still has me hooked and fixed to the screen, and all the character motivations are just so clear and well established. But fairly, I really didn't understand everything that is happening, because these timelines, these timeline branches and how they came to be are very complicated to fully grasp. And that's a good sign, because this show knows we're understanding the gist, but doesn't over-explain or try to make us realize the works of these time devices and variants and all that. If we would really dissect the show, so many questions and inconsistencies would arise, but it just doesn't matter because Owen Wilson's Mobius and Tom Hiddleston's Loki are so well done. I'm there for it. Hi fellow Disney Plus watchers, this is Thoughts After a Disney Plus Watch, where we review everything new Disney Plus coming out, and I'm glad you're watching. I will dive into some spoilers a little bit later, so be sure to stick around for that or click the spoiler timestamp below if you prefer, but I just want to give some of my general impressions first. This episode spends a lot of time on just Mobius and Loki sitting at a desk or in some room, talking and discussing their different philosophies and essentially getting into each other's head, trying to understand each other, and all this time spent is so well worth it. These two characters are beginning to understand each other, and these conversations are really meaningful because of it. Loki wants to play games, get out of the TVA, sweet talk his way out of the mission. Mobius is someone who takes his mission as a TVA agent very seriously, but does start to flirt with the idea of living a normal life, and their perspectives are so different, but they slowly but surely come to a mutual understanding. These conversations touch the heart of this story as it gets very philosophical, as Loki raises the point: aren't the ones who work for the TVA the only free people in existence? As the sacred timeline is predetermined, and if you do something that goes against it, you get arrested. You're by definition not free if you can walk only one path, so I thought that was really interesting. Before I jump into my spoiler section, if you're new and one that can't get enough of Disney Plus, this is the only channel that specifically and absolutely only Disney Plus thoughts and reviews. Episode per episode, we all watch together, you'll have an idea on what to expect. Click that button and that bell if you want to follow along, thank you so much. So, warning. Spoilers ahead for episode 2 of Loki. Still here? Cool, glad to have you. Not losing me despite having a complicated story is the biggest win of this episode. Let me take a moment to touch on the most important story point I didn't fully grasp but still thoroughly enjoyed. Of course, later on I will end with my final verdict and review, but first this. And more importantly, if you know more than me, better understand these plot points, or you want to enlighten me and maybe more in the community, then be sure to start a discussion in the comments. That will be fun. Let me explain why I think Lady Loki, as many predicted would appear, starting a total collapse of the main timeline is not possible. I know she's using these time reset devices, but I don't fully get what is happening here. Because let me explain. These devices are used by the TVA to clear up changes within the main timeline, essentially removing a Nexus time variant thing. But she, this Lady Loki, creates lots of Nexus events by sending those devices everywhere and anywhere. But this is exactly what the TVA workers are doing whenever they step into a room anywhere, anytime. So I'm following the gist of what this means, because all these time devices are sent somewhere, sometime, creating different timelines. That's exactly what the TVA is doing. They're creating a Nexus event when they go into another time, as we see on their devices, and they fix it later by setting everything back using such a device, and they have limited time and all. But here comes my point. Such a device only appearing somewhere will probably not instantly create a new timeline if these things stay where they are after the reset. Because we see within the first 15 minutes of this episode, when Loki and the TVA folks clear up the scene in Wisconsin in 1985, that the timeline is cleared up by this device while still being there. It doesn't just disappear out of itself. At least that is not what is explained. You get what I mean? Why are there instantly timelines created when these devices show up somewhere? Aren't these devices immune to time? You know, and even though I'm rambling about this, exactly this is why I love this show. It presents these things that are logically inconsistent in such an intriguing manner that I'm so on board. It's just like the plot hole that starts this whole show, which is such an interesting concept but doesn't make any sense. Why are the Avengers going back in time, messing up time? Why is that okay? Because if that is supposed to happen, without any question or discussion, Loki escaping is supposed to happen too. Okay, to be honest, you may question or discuss it, I would love you to, but that's just my take on it. These strange time concepts that makes you think about continuity and what can happen, what won't happen, these intriguing plot points, blended with some philosophical discussions about purpose, about freedom, about predetermination, just put in a great heist kind of plot with lots of weird humor. That is how I would describe this episode and this show, really. I absolutely love this idea of messing with people or objects right before a big disaster that wipes everything away. It's not something I would think of, and I'm not sure if it works that way if this TVA mission was a real thing, because if you do anything, it can have a butterfly effect, right? Like if you move this vase a little bit to the right, and then a bomb goes off, the shards fly a little bit further. So in the end, it could lead to a whole different timeline. But I guess the butterfly effect isn't really accounted for in this show. And how in the world did Mobius and Loki realize it must be 2050, the variant is hiding? It doesn't make sense, but the way it doesn't make sense makes for such a cool, slick, well-written plot. It's really well written despite all this stuff I'm talking about, because it's so character focused and intelligent about it. Oh, and I want to see more of Miss Minutes, like a lot more. Make her a main character, make her go along on a mission, something like that, please. She's so enjoyable. I'm thinking about wrapping this up. If you're interested in thoughts on previous episodes, it's all in the description, or you can browse the channel page. Did you like this video? Then all it takes is to click that blue little hand down there. Thanks. I will be here this Friday covering Big Shot, The Bad Batch, and of course Pixar's Luca. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll talk again next week when Loki episode 3 airs. For now, have a wonderful day and see ya!